85% of all sales happen after the fifth attempt, but 90% of salespeople make less than 5 attempts.
Meet Chris Smith, a USA Today bestselling author of 4 marketing and sales books. John Hopkins and NIU use his book, The Conversion Code, as required reading.
The good news now is that the way that algorithms work, they actually don't care if you have any followers. They care if the content that you're publishing is going to be relevant and enjoyed by the people they show it to.
Hey, I'm Gabe, and I want to welcome you back to Authority in the Wild, the podcast where we explore how to build influence and turn expertise into impact. Let me ask you something. Are you pouring money into Facebook ads, Google campaigns, and gorgeous landing pages only to feel like you're shouting in the void? Or even worse, you have no idea how to generate leads? You tune in to the right episode, because the difference between a closed deal and a dead end come down to just 5 minutes. A tiny window of time that can make or break your entire sales process.
If you get a lead and you follow up in less than 5 minutes, you have a 21x better chance of converting that lead than if you follow up in 30 minutes.
And there are critical questions that separate the business that thrive online from those that just survive. And today, we have the man who literally wrote the book on how to solve them.
It's unbelievable how quickly people will move on if you don't get back to them ASAP. So you need systems, people, or products in place.
Chris Smith will guide you through how to generate quality leads, how to turn those leads into customers, and most importantly, how to guide the conversation with them in order to convert them faster. He has cracked the code on a systematic approach to sales, and he's here to share the blueprint with us. Grab that pen and paper and let's dive into it. Chris, welcome to Authority in the Wild.
What's up, Gabe? Thanks for having me.
It's a true honor and pleasure to be with you today. And because the way people buy is changing, and conversion, it's always something hot, no matter the industry, no matter the place that you are in the marketing space. So why things have shifted so powerful recently, and why you wrote a second edition of your book?
Yeah. I think the short answer is that consumers are winning, meaning whether it's the government or the lawmakers or the technology companies, they are making it easier than ever to call it filter calls or not track your behavior. One of the stats from the conversion code that was in part of the second edition was that over 90% of people don't answer the phone if they don't recognize the number, right? And not to mention, when I get a call, sometimes it even says telemarketer or it says like suspected spam, right? And it even does that now on your text messages. There's like a separate inbox. If you have iOS 26, they have a filtered inbox. And then if you think about like a lot of times when you go into an app on your phone, it'll say, do you want this to track you? Yes or no? Or if you go to a website, it'll say, do you want to allow cookies? Yes or no? And you can imagine how most people answer, right? But why are companies doing this? Because salespeople are annoying and marketing people are annoying and they don't really add value. It's sort of like they only detract. So if you think about least where I'm at, like during the political season, we're getting inundated with robocalls. It's not even a person calling. It's a robot calling, or you get a voicemail, but your phone didn't ring. It's just cause and effect. It's supply and demand. There's demand for privacy. So there's supply for privacy. And the ideology of the first conversion code was a little bit more of like traditional internet direct response marketing, right? Capture leads, convert appointments, close sales. It's very textbooky. And the second conversion code is focused on high quality leads that are easy to convert versus where I come from, the boiler room, the dialing for dollars, having to call 100 people just to get a couple of them to answer. I just think that's not the future. That's the past.
Yeah, definitely I'd agree because if, especially in the world where now AI is calling you and so on, if you don't add that human touch to it, it's so hard to make someone literally buy from you. And you mentioned there's something I would like you to define. What in your world it's a high quality lead?
Yeah. Well, the short answer would be that they contact you, you don't contact them. That they're trying to hire you, you're not bugging them. And in the real world, what does that mean? If somebody watches this podcast, Gabe, and they listen to you and I talk for 45 minutes and they think I'm really smart and they think I know my stuff, and then they reach out to me and say, "Hey, we want to hire you to speak or consult or work with you." That's a high quality lead because I've basically proven my expertise digitally before the IRL conversation takes place. So the higher quality lead happens through content marketing and inbound marketing. So books and podcasts and social media videos and YouTube channels that give you email newsletters. It can be writing, it can, but you have to basically earn their business before you need it. I think is a really good way to think about it. And to do that, you have to be incredibly helpful and useful and provide either utility in the form of education, entertainment. There's got to be something in it for me if I'm going to let you in my feed. A high quality lead is a lead that really is reaching out to you and they're already sold.
Yeah, because they probably consume hours of you talking on stage or on a podcast or on your YouTube channel or reading your books and so on before they make the decision, Chris is the right person to actually help me with this. And still, a lot of people are not in that situation. They didn't start probably a few years back to build a personal brand and so on. Obviously, it's better to start now than tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. But if they are in that situation right now, before their reputation builds, what they should do in order to still get inbound leads or high quality leads?
Yeah, people say the best time to start is 15 years ago. The second best time is today, right? And here's the good news. Like I would be so pumped because I started in '09. Okay. And there wasn't even a word influencer. There was no such thing as YouTubers. There were no podcasts. There was no TikTok. Like there was nothing. There was, but it was so new that it was kind of the Wild West. None of us knew what we were doing. We were all just kind of throwing stuff against the wall. The good news now is that the way that algorithms work, they actually don't care if you have any followers. They care if the content that you're publishing is going to be relevant and enjoyed by the people they show it to. So I'll give you an example. Do you use TikTok, Gabe?
Not very much.
Okay. TikTok has cracked the code on not needing people to follow or comment or share to understand deeply what you want in your feed. It's called the FYP, the For You page. That was a big moment. And the way they did it, which was really smart, is they just look at retention. They just say, okay, this video is 16 seconds and this guy watched it for 8 seconds. So he watched half the video. So he must like this video because normally people watch 2 seconds or 7 seconds. You see what I'm saying? So they just looked at the sort of analytics that didn't require you to give them any feedback. And that's how they understand what to show you. So everybody's kind of moving in that direction now. So if I'm new, I'm just focusing on how can I create the best, most useful, coolest content possible. And I also, by the way, another thing I didn't have, Gabe, is AI. Let's be honest. That alone gets rid of the biggest challenge in content creation, which is ideas. right? If I go to ChatGPT and say, "Hey, what do you sell, Gabe? What does your company sell?" You must
Consulting.
sell something. Consulting. Okay. And who's the right person for you? Who's the right client for you?
Individuals that they left corporate a few years ago, they start to build a coaching business or consulting business, and they chase clients all the time rather than serving them.
Okay. So you're coaching the coaches, you're
Consulting
consulting the
more, yeah.
consultants.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what I would do is I would go into ChatGPT and I would say, "Hey, here's me. Here's what I sell. And here's the best people that should hire me. They're they were with corporate America. They're ready to go out on their own. Here's their pain points. Here's their hopes, their dreams, their goals. Here's the kind of accounts they follow on social media. Here's the kind of YouTube channels they subscribe to. Can you send me a fresh list of ideas for content creation every morning at 7 a.m.?" And it'll do it. And by the way, you can also get it to cater the content. It'll, first of all, it'll create the content for you, to be clear. It'll write the tweet, it'll write the LinkedIn post, and it knows all the best practices for every platform. So it knows what will get the most likes, the most shares. It knows the science, right? That's what a lot of my book is, the science behind how to do it right. And so, man, I would, and then it would give me these categories and these ideas that would say, "Hey, for people that, used to have a corporate job that now want to go out on their own, these are their pain points. And what you're really looking for are what are the best hooks?" Because whether it's a reel or a TikTok or a video or an email or whatever it may be, LinkedIn, the very beginning is what's going to determine whether they end up getting to the end. So a good hook might be like, "Hey, I left corporate America 5 years ago. I don't answer to anyone. Do you want to know how to do that? Because here's three things that I do that got me out of the 9 to 5 grind." You know, so show me that you know me in your content. And the reality is that, like, I have a post right now on Facebook that has 6 million views. I only have 48,000 followers. So if you really overperform, these social networks now, they'll show it to anybody and everybody. And every single post that I do on Instagram and Facebook, I get more followers because they're really pushing it more than ever to non-followers. So, like, organic social media has the ability to do a two for one. One, can really influence the people that consume it, but then two, it can grow your influence in the case of views, shares, followers, likes. So if I'm brand new and I'm starting out, I'm going to give people a couple words that really matter: unique, creative, original ideas. I want to put out unique, creative, original stuff. Help me do that, because there's a sea of sameness. You ever heard that? The sea of sameness. Average is everywhere, you know? And so I like to be different and unique and creative with the stuff that I put out. I want to be a one of one. I don't want to be Gary V. Jr. I don't want to basically take his advice and tweak it, or make it my own. I want to be the genesis of the best ideas when it comes to content. And again, thank goodness AI got rid of every excuse.
But on that one, especially speaking of LinkedIn, for example, I was quite active there the last couple of years, and it's indeed a sea of sameness. And especially after the ChatGPT start to write better, and after that Claude and so on. And I'll argue that if most people will use AI, of course, it's great to get started, get ideas, but if they just leverage AI alone, I'll argue they won't go far. And some people, of course, there are some exceptions. But if AI will kind of spit the same thing all the time, if you don't train it on your own experience or your own knowledge and so on. And speaking of, like, you mentioned at some point, if someone like just their corporate job and they start their own business and they want to hear the story of someone that actually was in those shoes, how we can still leverage AI, but send that unique message out there, ensure that we tap into our own expertise.
Yeah, it's a great question. I have basically spent dozens of hours, probably over 100 hours, making the AI mine. So I use something called a custom GPT, and I also use something called a project in Claude. So those are, and so with Claude, which I feel like does a really good job with creative writing that sounds very human, I have 4 books. I gave it all my books. I uploaded the whole thing. I gave it all my blogs. I gave it all my tweets. I gave it all my YouTube videos. I trained it. I said, this is me. I gave it all my newsletters. It takes a while to do that. It's just like laborious, it just takes some time and it's not that fun. But man, now I've got something called Chris AI, and it is literally known in the world as creating the content that I'm creating. The AI, I'm happy to tell people I use AI to help me create great content, but I don't create AI content. I'm the editor. You know what I mean? It's just like I got another Chris who will work 24/7 and never complain. So I'm like, hey, Chris Jr., give me 25 tweet ideas. And it knows me so well that it gives me 25. And out of the 25, I only 2, right? So I'm saying the AI is awful 23 out of 25 times. And then the 2 that I like, I tweak, because it's not quite what I want to say. But that's the new dance that people should be doing. So I understand that, like, some of the jargon that it uses, some of the punctuation and the dashes and stuff that it uses, red flag. It immediately looks like AI. But there's even tools, by the way, this is what happens when you love technology and you embrace it and you like don't like kind of like shit on it. Quillbot. You ever heard of Quillbot?
Yeah.
Because that to me is something where if your concern is something being unoriginal and AI, that's something Quillbot can help with, right?
Yeah, you just input a text and it's getting rid of at least when last time I tried, was getting rid of AI generated nonsense. And it's rewriting the text the way you want. And if I remember correctly, it has like a feature to shorten it or make it longer and so on.
Mhm. It'll basically say there's an 85% chance this is AI. And then it'll rewrite it to where there's no chance it's AI. So there's even tools that can address that head on. But I think taking a step back, I'll give you one thing that I did that took forever. Do you use Twitter? I know you don't use talk. Do you tweet? X account?
Rarely. I'm most active on LinkedIn and Instagram, but I have an
Okay.
account and kind of know the ropes.
Okay. So all of these platforms, and it's not straightforward. How long have you been using, let's say, LinkedIn? 10 years, probably?
Yeah, but actively, realistically, like 3.5, something like that,
Okay.
with an
And
account for,
Instagram as well.
yeah.
So what you can do is you can actually download your history of everything you've ever posted. And I think this works best with text. So not so much with the Instagram. It's a different beast. But what I did is I went into Twitter and I said, I want every tweet I've ever given. And I want all the metrics. I want to know what my most liked tweet ever was, all the way down to the worst one. And you can do that on LinkedIn, Facebook. You can extract it. It just takes a while. Like it took a week for Twitter to get back to me. I'm like, what is going on? Just give me the list.
You tweet a lot.
And yeah, I have over 50,000 tweets. Well, once they gave it to me and I had it in a spreadsheet, I gave it to Claude and I said, hey, here's every tweet I've ever done with all of the engagement. Analyze them, figure out what I can do that works the best, and help me come up with categories and topics based on what my audience likes, right? I was listening to the algorithm and then I was analyzing the results of what I heard. And then that gave me a very clear path on what I should focus on. The other thing that I've done, and this is actually a really cool one, I'm guessing occasionally you have a post that does way better and you get a lot of comments and you get, call it 10 times more interaction than normal. Well, on that Facebook post that I did that has 6 million views, it has over 7,000 comments. So I actually now I take the comments and I go to the AI and say, hey, here's every comment from my most recent post. Give me a breakdown of what people are saying, the sentiment. And by the way, how can we leverage the insights from the comments to create more content? So it's a friend, it's a loop. You see what I'm saying? And I also, about once a month, somewhere in there, I go back and I say, hey, these are the 5 that did the best. Add it to your brain. These 5 are the ones that perform the best. It's a dance I'm doing with the technology. And because I am putting that in, I'm not saying that day one, write a tweet for me. No, because I'm putting in the work, I have probably a way different experience and viewpoint of AI than other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned there's a superpower there, like the comments part. And especially if you analyze as well, let's say your competitors or people that you kind of have the same audience, use their comments in order to generate, because people will complain about certain products or certain things, and maybe your product can do it better and you have content for that. And once you solve this problem of acquisition and you have attention, you get inbound leads, how someone can actually convert them into clients.
Yeah. It's a really good tip that you just gave. So I'm going to double click that. You don't need your own viral content to do anything I'm saying, because you can go to the number one influencer on Twitter in your space. Like I'll give you an example. I think do you know Scott Galloway? Do you know who that
Yeah.
is? Okay. I feel like he has a similar kind of follower to the kind of person you described. They come from corporate America, but they're kind of trying to stick it to the man and they want to kind of build their own business, like Professor Galloway, right? He's a really smart dude. So what I would do is I would sort all of his most popular tweets ever, and I would grab a bunch of those, and I would go to his YouTube channel and I would sort by the most viewed, and I'd grab a bunch of those transcripts, and then like you were saying, grab a bunch of the comments, right? So you can really have all of this insight into. I was interviewing a guy the other day, and I basically was like, let me find his most viral tweet to bring it up. I had 7,600 likes. It was way more than normal. And it was something that was a little political. And I have always stayed away from anything like that. I think there's lots of people that are smarter than me about politics. I'm just really good at marketing and sales. So I try to stay in my lane. And but I was interviewing him and he had a tweet and it said, if you think homes are expensive now, wait till we deport all the illegals and see how much they cost. And I was like, wow, that got a response. So I took his and I said, hey, look what this guy said. You know what I mean? I didn't say it, but he said it. I'm interviewing him if you want to come. But that his tweet with his face, with his name in my account, I think there's 10,000 comments on this post. And it's all the kind of comments I don't want any part of, by the way, right? The back and forth around immigration and housing. Like, I don't want to talk about that. But my point is, that was me able to look at someone else's stuff and be like, okay, here's what is his best performing stuff. So, but back to your question, and I was just going to throw out there, Reddit is another really great place to find ridiculously good comments and commentary in subreddits. But how do you take a high quality lead and turn it into a customer? There's a couple things. Part of it is the follow up tactics and methodology that you deploy. And then part of it is the conversation that you have. So I'll start with the methodology and the tactics of getting them on your calendar for a call, for a Zoom, for a meeting at the coffee shop, right? And that comes down to really two really important things. One is what we call speed to lead. Okay. If you get a lead and you follow up in less than 5 minutes, you have a 21x better chance of converting that lead than if you follow up in 30 minutes. Like from minute 5 to minute 30 is really critical. I actually looked at the data around minute 1 versus minute 2 versus minute 3. It's unbelievable how quickly people will move on if you don't get back to them ASAP. So you need systems, people, or products in place that allow you to follow the 5-minute rule, which is that every single lead we ever generate has someone reaching out to them in less than 5 minutes after they reach out to us.
Let's discuss that a
Because,
bit because
yeah,
I think it's very fascinating. As people think, oh, if someone contacted me and they trust me, it's inbound, it's hot, and maybe even someone recommend that person to you, but you're not the only one they are contacting. And if someone else is replying faster than you already lose.
people always have options besides you, even when it's a referral. But I will say you're hitting on something really important, which is yes, the more sold they are on you, less important some of these tactics are. So if somebody wants to hire me to speak at their conference and they reach out to me and send me an email, they're going to still want me to speak at their conference 3 days later, right? I don't have to get back to them in 60 seconds, you know? So, yes, that is important too. But I'm saying, like, and this is really the mindset of my book is like inbound marketing, you know, but outbound sales. So it's like you combine the best of both worlds. You generate inbound leads that are really wanting to work with you, but then you still treat them like a cold call in the sense that you follow up right away and you call them several times until they answer. So speed to lead, critical. And then effort, which is tenacity, which is how many times total are you looking to get them on the phone, replying to a text, an email. And the number is crazy that like 85, I think it's either 81 or 85% of all sales happen after the fifth attempt. But 90% of salespeople make less than 5 attempts.
That's
So there's just,
fascinating.
yeah, it's just a big disconnect. So you reach out once, they don't pick up, they don't recognize the number. You text, they don't get back to you, they're in a meeting, and then you just move on. That's what most people do. Whereas if you apply science and you look at the data, makes it very clear that you should be following up a lot more times than you are. And you can't take it personal when they don't respond or pick up, because the reality is we live in a very distracted, busy world. And so if they ask to be contacted, we're going to reach out to them until we contact them. And that might be 3 to 4 attempts on day one, 2 or 3 more on day two, one more on day three. You know what I'm saying? And even day 7, day 10, day 15, like when you work for a company that forces you to call leads, they ensure that you do all of these things. But if you're more of a freelancer, solopreneur, it's really on you to have that, kind of mindset that like, I'm going to talk to this person. So those are two things that everybody can control: how quickly they get back to people and how many attempts they make to get them on the phone. But the magic is knowing exactly what to say when you have the phone call, the conversation. And that's where a lot of people fail. They are terrible at sales. They do not understand the art and science of conversations that lead to yeses versus conversations that lead to maybes or nos. And that is, if you look at my book, the whole first section is about the marketing that generates the leads. The second section is kind of the technology and the processes that get them to answer. The whole third section is about scripts and knowing what to say and when and why and how and tone. It's critical. And so I would say that most people self identify as being terrible at sales. And that is such an easy thing to fix, because there are very unique things you can do that make the call and the conversation better for both parties. If I showed you Like, this is part of my sales script that I use. Notice how there's nothing there? That's a pretty bad script. I think when people think of scripts, they think of Hollywood and they think of trying to memorize what to say. And by the way, sounding robotic, like reading off a paper. That's not what it is. A script is just a process that you follow each and every time so that you get the outcome you want each and every time. You want the highest conversion rate possible. And to do that, you have to have structure to the calls that you make. So I can go into a couple of the specific tactics that are a part of that, but what you're what you're trying to do when you end up on the phone with these people is you want them to be more excited than the cost of what you sell. And at the point that they're more excited than the cost, you need to close them and ask them to buy. That's really all you're doing on any sales call. How do I get this person more excited than the cost of what I sell during the time I have their attention?
And before I'll make you indeed go a bit in details of the structure of a script when you jump on a sales call, I would like to ask you what actually makes people exciting in order to buy? Because so often, if they come with a problem, let's say in my case, they come with, oh, I need more leads, I need more clients. While in reality, that's not the case. They need better leads and so on. But how to make them exciting? I will say that I have no idea how to sell, even that I work in sales and so on. But I will just play here.
Most marketing consultants, they're terrible at sales. So you're not like I did a speech at HubSpot's event and it was called Boiler Room Billionaire Sales Scripts. The whole audience was marketing people. It was like overflowing. They had to shut down the room. So you're not alone. It's definitely something that most people are not great at. But I'm glad we're talking about it because that's how you improve is making it a priority. So the way that you get people excited is two things. You have to be excited. There's one of my coaches, this is from my book. I don't know if people are watching or listening, but that's what I was just saying, like the science of get them more excited than the cost during the time. But this is what you're talking about now, enthusiasm, right? Enthusiasm ends with IASM. Think of that as an acronym. I am sold myself. Okay. It's contagious, it's infectious. And in a call like this, some people I'm guessing will listen to this and then some people will watch this, right? The people that watch this, they see me, they see like my body language, my physiology. That's a big part of how people communicate and how people understand other people. Well, if you're on a phone call, you don't have any of that. So what do you have? You have your words and your tone. And a lot of people have what I call, have you ever heard of resting bitch face? You hear people say this? Okay. Well, people have resting bitch tone, meaning it isn't their fault. It has nothing to, it's not personal, but they don't sound excited or passionate if you just listen to them. And the tone is so critical. So I would work. You're asking, how do I get them excited? One, you have to have a deep belief in the fact that if they don't buy from you, their experience will be poorer going somewhere else. But part two is you have to have an infectious tone. And it may not be natural for you. So you might have to work on it. You might have to sit up in your chair a little bit. One simple thing is you might want to stand up and walk around while you're on the phone. Open up your diaphragm a little bit. It's okay if when the call starts, when I'm on this call with you, this is me. This is no acting, no nothing, right? This is who I am. But I'm not going to hang up with you and go talk like this to my wife. She would divorce me if every conversation we had was like, "Hey, hon, what are we going to do for dinner?" We need to have a good dinner. That would be annoying. So it's sort of like when that red light comes on and they say action. It's okay not to be your normal self. It's okay to amp up a couple notches because it's so important that you do, and everyone will appreciate it. But the other key to getting people excited is to get them talking instead of you. This is so important. You are asking, oh, what do you guys need? Oh, we need more leads. Most people in a sales call environment, their answers are very short and sweet. It's like you're trying to have a good conversation with them and they're giving you very short answers, right? Oh, we need more leads. Okay. And what are you guys doing now to generate leads? We're doing some social media, but not much else. Right. So, what you have to do is this is something I call the digging deep technique. You have the questions that you're going to ask because you need to qualify people. You need to understand their problems before you pitch your solutions. That's critical. So, there are questions you kind of have to ask, you know, but then there are questions that you get to ask because you listened to the questions and you listened to their answers. So that's what I call the digging deep technique. I would only plan out about 5 or 7 questions that I was going to ask. But every single answer they give is going to cause me to ask another question. That's digging deeper. And what I found is that number one, that gets them to it becomes much more of a conversation versus a pitch. And then number two, usually by the like third or fourth or fifth, attempts, then they give you the real answer. So you're just like, oh, you just need better leads, right? That's kind of what you're saying. That's what they really mean. Well, you want them to say that, So if somebody said, oh, we don't have enough leads, as soon as I hear that, the only thought in my brain is, well, how many do you have? That's the only thought I have is like, how many do you have now? 100. Well, that sounds like a lot. How many do you think you need? Well, we'd be at 500. Okay, you need 500 leads. How many people do you have to follow up? How good are they at their job? Because we don't want to pour more leads into a leaky bucket. Where are these leads coming from? What information do you have about the leads when you reach out? How long does it take you to contact the lead when you do get one? What's your cost per lead? This is digging deep. And what happens is, and this is, I know, probably hard for people to believe because I'm talking so much, but I'm being interviewed for a podcast. It's different. The best salespeople in the world actually talk less than the lead throughout the course of a call. 57% of the talk time with top salespeople is the other person, and 43% of the time is the rep. How in the world are you going to do that if you're not asking great questions? And by the way, what happens is as we're digging deep, we're writing down all their answers, which I highly recommend that you're listening. And there's tools that do it. I get it. But when I create my sales pitch, when I kind of turn the corner later in the call and I say, okay, great, here's how we can help you. 100% of my pitch is based on the answers to the questions I asked. I would say, hey, when you guys reached out, you said you need more leads. Right now, you got 100. You're looking for 500. And right now, the quality of the follow up is poor. Am I right? Right. Okay. Here's what we're going to do to help you with that. And earlier you said, you said X. So that's why we're going to recommend Y, right? My co-author, I have a book called Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents. It's based on a multi-million selling book of the same title. Just the main book is called Exactly What to Say. We wrote the real estate industry edition. And my co-author, his name's Phil M. Jones. Brilliant guy. Everybody should look him up. But he says sales is earning the right to make a recommendation. That's it. So the only way that you can, I was talking to the number one salesperson at realtor.com one time. Hey, man, how do you make so many more sales than the other guys? You're all at the same table. I was on stage giving the speech, and then everybody goes back to the booth at the break, and he always made the most sales. He said, Chris, because what the other salespeople are doing is they're not establishing a problem before they propose a solution. So everybody comes back to the booth looking for a solution, just like the people that reach out to you. Here's what we're after. And your job is to say, hold on, let's figure out if there's a problem to solve. That is really the sort of diagnosis that works, is solving problems. You can't make the right recommendation if you don't earn it through listening and digging deep.
Yeah, because often when you serve quote unquote someone that comes to you with a problem, but in reality is not the real problem, you won't be able to help them first. Second, they'll complain after that. So you help me solve the wrong problem. And that's why this diagnostic part is so important, and diving deep into the reality behind their request in order to truly understand them. And I'm a true believer that in order to help someone, you really need to understand it. To, as you well said, sit with them, listen, and take notes. Use those notes in order to create a solution. And going back a bit to the structure of this approach, like how do you structure your sales calls to ask the question at the right time? You start in a certain way, you continue in a certain way, you end up in a certain way, or how it goes?
There's definitely an order, right? So the first thing I do is before the call starts, I look at what they told me on the form, in the notes from previous calls. I call this the pre call stalk. Like, I will Google their email address. I will go to Grok and say, hey, I have a sales call with this person later today. Here's their email. Can you find everything you know about them so that I'm really in power position when I go into the call? So I'm trying to find really specific things that I can use in the opening of the call. So, as an example, it might be, hey, John, I got your information from Zillow about 6 months ago. You're looking at a property in 32828 that was $700,000. How's your day going? Like, those little nuggets are like, oh, it's not a cold caller, you know? So that would be something that I think is always worth it. Take 5 minutes before the call, grab a couple nuggets. It could be where you went to school. It could be, hey, I saw that you went to Florida State as well. That's cool. I went there. Where did you graduate? You're trying to find some things that are personal and specific to them that you can use. That would be number one. Number two is what I call the perfect first minute. And the perfect first minute is understanding that no matter how good the lead is, how bad the lead is, they typically have a brick wall up when they start, and they almost always just want to cut to the chase. So, one that a lot of people will want to know real early is, well, I was just curious how much it is. How much do you guys charge? Remember, we're trying to get them more excited than the cost while we have their attention. And if we're 30 seconds in saying, oh, it's $15,000 to have me speak at your event, I haven't had enough time to get them more excited than the cost. So there's a technique that I recommend called ARP, ARP, and it's acknowledge, respond, pivot. Okay. So you acknowledge what they said. And by doing that, you just read it back. Oh, you want to know how much I charge to speak at conferences? No problem. And then you respond, I feel blessed for how much I'm able to charge lately. I can't believe I get paid as much as I do. When is the conference that you're thinking about having me at? That's a pivot away from cost. So no matter what it is, like if you're a realtor, it's, hey, just wanted to know if the property was still for sale. Oh, you want to know if the home's still for sale? No problem. I'll look that up. That's the acknowledge. Respond would be, if you found it on Zillow or on the internet, there's a good chance it's not. A lot of those homes have already sold. What drew you to the home that you found? Pivot, right? So that helps a lot. And then there's a bunch of other stuff that I could never cover in just an interview like this, but you're building trust by giving them some statistics that make them feel good. Hey, by the way, I've already spoken at 700 events, and the average audience gives me a 9.9, just one loser per event that says I didn't do a good job, right? So you can use stats, but it really just comes down to the section that matters the most is, okay, I want to figure out if we can help you. Tell me about this, which is that digging deep. You're asking really good questions, you're digging really deep, and that entire process is what helps you write your sales pitch, which I call FBT, which is feature, benefit, tie down. That's kind of the structure of the pitch itself. So I would say, hey, we're going to help you generate leads using social media. That's the feature, right? Leads. The benefit is that because we're using social media, these are going to be leads that we actually know who they really are, right? And then the tie down would be you want people to answer when you call them, right? Right. Okay. Next feature. So it's FBT, FBT. And because you're kind of doing it and you're kind of like getting that buy in each time before you go to the next thing, that is almost like a mini close. So as opposed to getting to the end of your sales pitch and there being one question, are you moving forward today? Are you in? Should I get the paperwork started? Instead of those types of, hit or miss questions, you've been getting them to say yes throughout the pitch. And so saying yes at the end is much more natural.
Yeah, absolutely, because they kind of sell themselves into it by sharing more details. They are revealing what they need. And even as a speaker, I assume they tell you why they want you as a speaker. They tell you how the conference will unfold, what are the speakers are, and you'll be able to basically tell them why you are the right person, like by sharing the stats, by sharing the details they want. And when an objection comes in, for example, after you build that trust and they're like, all right, and still what's the price? And you give them a price or you don't give them a price, or how do you proceed?
Yeah, when you're at this point that you're doing the pitch and you're closing and trying to get them to say yes, you're going to give them the terms for sure.
If they say, all right, I'll need to think about it, because I think it's one of the most common objections that most people get. What do you say to that?
Well, a lot of times they have to think about it, or that's not in my budget, or I need to talk with someone before I make a decision. There's very common objections. So the technique that you're using in that scenario is called ARC, ARC, instead of ARP. Acknowledge the objection, respond to the objection, close them again. Okay. So if they need to wait, right? Okay, I totally get it. No pressure. If you need to sleep on it, I do that too when making a big decision, right? But when, throughout this conversation, you said that your goals are A, B, and C. And you said that the outcome of solving those problems was worth E, D, and F. And bringing me to the conference is a decision that kind of empowers all of that to unfold. So did you want to use a credit or debit card for the deposit? And that's like C, which is like close again, right? But there's something called smoke screen objections, and then there's real objections. Okay. When I get to the end of a call, if I've done everything that I'm talking about properly, the objections are usually legitimate. But what happens is a lot of salespeople are getting BS objections. And what the objection is doing is it's just their nice way of saying, I don't think you're worth more than the cost. It's just the easy way out. Oh, I need to think about it. Oh, let me get back to you in a couple of days. Oh, let me talk to my wife. Oh, let me check our budget. So if you do a great job and that stuff comes up, by all means, like that happens. It's sales. That's why following up so many times is important. What I do in that situation is it's something I call preferred additional outcome. If you're in sales and you're only planning on people to say yes, you've picked the wrong profession.
Yeah.
Like it's just sort of not how it works, even if you're great. So what I have is I have a planned additional outcome, which is basically like I'm still going to get you to say yes. It's just going to be to something else, right? So in that example where they need to think about it, no problem. I actually wanted to set up a decision-making call for tomorrow at 1 p.m. At the end of that call, we'll know if we're working together or not. So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
nice way to put it.
yeah. So basically it's like you're setting the next appointment for the next. Oh, you need to think about it. No problem. You know, 24 hours is the least I can give you. You know, how about tomorrow at 3, we do a call where you make the decision? Sure. That's fair. So now I've got that appointment on my calendar tomorrow at 3 for the decision. And on that call, usually you're going to get your answer, yes or no. So now some people that I'm not ready to set that call up. Okay, no problem. Would you mind if I sent you some testimonials of the people that have brought me to their conferences in the past? And I send you my speaker reel so you can show it to the people that you work with. Sure. Okay. What's your email? I'll send that over. So you're kind of like always getting a version of yes that extends the relationship. But I do think a lot of people are just afraid to get an objection and then overcome it and then close people again, because the last thing I'll leave you with here is like there's something called a buying question that sounds like an objection, but it's actually them wanting to work with you. So if they get to the end and it's, oh, well, how much is it? And it's, oh, it's $10,000. And they're like, well, do we have to pay that all up front? Oh, great question. You know, like that's a buying sign. That means they want to buy, can't quite afford it. And now I'm like, okay, how about this? What if we did half up front and the other half you don't even have to pay until I walk off the stage and everybody's clapping because they're so happy that I spoke? Oh, okay. Or how about we, there's 6 weeks until the event. What if we just break the payment down into 6 payments over the next 6 weeks? Would that work better for your budget? Sure. Yeah, I didn't know that was an option, right? So part of it is just being dialed in on, is it an objection? Is it an objection that's legit? Or is it a buying sign that sounds like an objection? You eventually get really dialed in, man. And because you're listening so intently and you're curious and you're digging deep, it's such a good call. It's such a good feeling for both parties. And you're just giving it the best shot. Like I said, you want the highest conversion rate possible, but no one's going to bat 1,000. No one bats 1,000. Everybody strikes out. Michael Jordan missed half of his shots, right? You're not going to ever be, 100 for 100. But if you're an organization or, a solopreneur and you're listening to this, here's what I want you to think about. If right now 2% of the people are converting and you can get that to 4%, you're doubling your income, like the reason it's so important to increase your lead conversion rate is because that's the cash register ringing. So I've helped people that they're doing a lot of internet leads and their conversion rate was 0.8 and we got it to 1.8. That doubled their ROI. So it's a lot about perspective. We're not looking for more traffic or more clicks or more subscribers. Like this is sales. This is if you increase or improve your conversion rate, it really is priceless. That's why a sales organization will pay me 30 G's to speak at their conference in front of 7,000 people. Because if 7,000 salespeople get 0.2% better, it makes that company a lot more than 30 G's, right? So that is what I think people should be the most excited about is like, even if you just move the needle a little bit, the return on that is tremendous. And that's why I think my book has, 500,000 copies and 7 languages and, all these accolades because it's such an important thing to get right.
100%. And I love that there's something like if your conversion rate is too high, you're probably charging too low.
Absolutely.
And Chris, please tell those listening, they're so excited. They want to hire you to speak on stage or they want to check your book, where they should get in touch with you.
Yeah, it's so funny. I'm not even speaking right now. I've took the year off. So I'm just using those examples from my past. But the best place to go is theconversioncode.com. That's got the book, the link to Amazon, any information about my workshops, my coaching, consulting, and then Twitter, X, and Instagram is where I'm the most active. I spend most of my time. Chris underscore SMTH, no I in Smith. Chris underscore SMTH on IG and X. And I love to connect with people. Let me know you heard me on the podcast. Always nice to meet new people.
Awesome, and the links will be down below for easy access for you guys. And I want to agree with one single thing. Let's go travel a bit in time, but in the future. It's 2030. What did you experience in the last 5 years in terms of how people buy?
Well, I will confidently say that 25 to 30% of our sales are now happening through people engaging and talking to an AI.
That will be
Yeah.
the future.
One out of every 3 sales we make never speak to a human.
This was Chris Smith on Authority in the Wild. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm not sure about you, but if you just listen until this point, I bet you took a lot of notes. Now it's time to put them into action. But before you do that, can you do me a small favor? If you want to see more experts like Chris Smith joining the podcast, please subscribe to the channel if you're on YouTube, or follow on Spotify or Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, because this helps me bring more quality guests to the show, increase the production, and share this knowledge with all of you. Thank you so much, and until next week, pura vida.